And now what I want to do is I want to get into some of the biggest mistakes that home service companies are making when it comes to their online advertising. And I'm super pumped to have Michael Carney with us, or Mike, our paid search strategist for the company. And Mike, let's just hand the floor to you and kind of walk us through some of the biggest mistakes you see as you take over these campaigns and some of the tweaks that you make to make them sing.
Yeah, for sure. So actually, before we get into that, I wasn't actually initially planning on covering this, but I know you mentioned our ROI. We have some ROI tracking set up for a lot of our clients, and I see a couple of you guys in the chat saying Google Ads is expensive, which it definitely is. It's a daunting platform if you don't know what you're doing. It can be tough. You could waste a lot of your budget, but if you do know what you're doing, it could work really well for you. So I did want to pull up our quarter 1 results here for the clients that we do have on our ROI report. So this is just for Google Ads. This recent quarter 1 in 2026, we had about a 7.5 time closed return on investment up to 14 time potential return. The potential includes all estimates and sold revenue as well. So you can get results similar to this, but at the same time, if you don't really have too much familiarity with Google Ads, it could be a bit of a wake up call trying to get into Google Ads, not really knowing what you're doing and what mistakes you might be making. So I wanted to share my screen. I'm not going to have the actual slideshow pulled up because I'm going to go back and forth between an actual Google Ads platform and show you. Google likes to hide a lot of the settings that I'm going to go into. So I just want to jump back and forth and go through these mistakes and show you what I'm talking about in the actual account itself. So the first mistake I want to go into is really as soon as you launch your Google Ads account, it's very possible that you're making this first mistake. I noticed this with a lot of the accounts that we audit. Google will push you towards smart campaigns, and those campaigns are not smart whatsoever. So basically, these campaigns are just meant to get your ads running as soon as possible and get you spending, but you have no control over the smart campaigns. You can't see your search term visibility. So it'll give you like search names, but you can't actually see what terms you're showing up for and what you're spending money on. There's really no easy way to negate keywords specifically in the smart campaigns. And a lot of the time, if they're not getting you a bunch of irrelevant competitor clicks and calls, it's just going to be capitalizing on your brand terms, which, maybe you do want to run some brand campaigns, but I know most of the companies we work with want to target service specific keywords, not their brand so much. So if you launch a brand new account, Google's unfortunately going to take you through, there's really no way to skip it. It's going to force you to create a campaign. So if you're looking to start an account, or maybe this happened to you in the past, go through the whole campaign setup process. And then once you get that campaign launched, just pause it immediately, just remove it immediately, and then create a new campaign from your actual campaign dashboard. So launch that initial campaign that Google forces you through, go to your campaigns, and then once you get to this page, again, I just have a dummy account pulled up here to show you guys what it would look like. You're just going to click the blue plus button here and create a new campaign. And then from this page, Google's going to try to guide you through the setup process. Just make sure, just not really taking Google's recommendations most of the time. It's usually going to point you in the wrong direction, believe it or not. So create a campaign without guidance, and 90% of the time, you're going to want to be running search campaigns. So you can see there's a bunch of different campaigns here. Google's going to set up smart campaigns for you. Performance Max is an option. Display, again, could be used for like retargeting and whatnot. But a lot of these other campaign types, I wouldn't even bother with, especially if you're just getting started. Start with what is the best performing campaign type, which is search campaigns, and then take it from there. And then from here, you're just building your ad copy, your keywords, all of that stuff. So that's the first mistake I wanted to get into, is just the initial path that Google tries to push you down with smart campaigns and thinking that's the right move, which it's definitely not. Make sure you're running search campaigns and manually setting up your campaigns without Google guiding you through the whole process. The next mistake here is using wrong match types. Google has multiple different match types. They have broad match, phrase match, exact match. And over the years, Google's been broadening out these match types more and more. So basically, phrase match now works the way broad match used to work. Exact match works like phrase match is supposed to work. So the way that we run our campaigns, we use almost in our entire strategy is exact match. I would say about 75% of the keywords we target are exact matched, maybe 25% phrase match. Very rarely will test broad match keywords as well. For example, if you're targeting phrase match drain cleaning Las Vegas, even though that phrase a lot of the time won't even show up in the search term, it could be showing up for competitor terms, DIY terms, cost related terms like employment terms, stuff like that, which is just wasting your ad spend. Google Ads is expensive. You could be spending up to $50 to $100 per click, even depending on how competitive your market is. So really the main thing is making sure you're saving your budget and you're not wasting all of your ad spend every single month on terms that aren't going to be driving you any business. So that's really the main thing there. You could definitely still test out phrase match. I would just save it for more like long tail keywords, nothing short tail. So for example, for our HVAC companies, I noticed like AC repair and phrase match just bringing in tons of competitor terms, stuff like that. So that's like the keyword AC repair, just those two words. I would use that in exact match, but maybe a air conditioning repair near me, that's something you could test out in phrase match. But again, if you are using phrase or broad match, keep a really close eye on your search terms report. Google does show you all of the terms or most of the terms that your ads are triggering. So you're not going to see any data here because this is just a test account. But if you go to your campaigns, insights, reports, search terms, this will show all of the search terms your campaigns are triggering. And then from here, you could highlight whatever you don't want and negate that term so you don't show up for that anymore. But I can tell you with exact match, you're not even going to really need to negate many terms. It's going to be very clean. It's just going to be all close variants of your keyword that you're targeting. So if you're targeting, let's say you're a plumbing company in Miami, for example, if you're targeting plumber near me in exact match, it won't only allow you to show up for plumber near me. It'll show close variants of that keyword, like phrase match is supposed to work. So you'll still show up for like plumbing company in Miami, plumbing company in my area, things like that. So I definitely recommend starting with exact match for sure. And then over time, like we still test broad match on occasion, but it's usually with our accounts that have tons of data. The smart bidding algorithm is already, dialed in, and, we're at the point where everything's working so well. We're just trying to kind of squeeze everything we can out of the account and start split testing broad match. If you do that though, I would recommend launching broad match in its own campaign so you have full control over it. It's not taking priority over your exact match and potential phrase match terms. And then one other setting I did want to mention, because it's like a newer feature that Google's offering, is AI Max, which is kind of like even worse than broad match keywords. At least when we've tested it out, it worked really poorly. It just brought in a lot of irrelevant competitive clicks. And I know maybe you guys have some experience getting on calls with Google reps. They'll push new features like this all the time, whether it works or doesn't work. They don't care. They're still going to tell you to enable it, and that's just their job. So don't use AI Max. Again, maybe if you do want to test it out, if you have a seasoned account, go for it, but keep a really close eye on it. But especially if you're new to Google Ads and launching a new account, stay away from AI Max. Just launch exact match keywords and search campaigns. That's going to be your best bet when you're getting started. So mistake 3, Josh kind of covered this one already, but I still see tons of advertisers sending their ads to their website rather than service-specific landing pages. I did just want to add there, though, if you do have a website that you're sending traffic to, at least make sure it's going to a service-specific page. So if you're running a drain cleaning ad, for example, don't send that ad to your homepage. At least send it to your drain cleaning service page, because that'll at least let Google know that that ad is relevant. There's drain cleaning content on that page. You're hopefully have drain cleaning headlines in your ad copy. You're targeting drain cleaning keywords, so it has that message match from the landing page to the ad copy to the keywords you're targeting. That'll increase your ad quality, and higher ad quality leads to lower cost per clicks. I know there's some debate about that, but that comes from Google's support page directly. Higher ad quality leads to lower cost per clicks, which will also help with your ad visibility, your impression shares, your click-through rates, all that stuff. So that's the second point of this. So if you have service-specific landing pages, that's recommended. If you don't, at least send it to a service-specific page on your website. And then the second portion of this is your ad copy that you're writing. So I do see the accounts that I audit, I see the ad copy a lot of the time is very weak. So obviously, it's not like Facebook ads where you could test different graphics and stuff like that. So we need to take advantage of the assets that we do have, which is all of the different headline and description slots and your ad extensions and all of that stuff, which I'm going to get into. I'm just going to pull up an example ad here and kind of show you like a way to write your ad copy. I'll pull up all our responsive search ads, and I'm just going to open up an example here. You're going to have 15 headline slots, and you're going to want to use all of those 100%. You don't want to be lazy here and only utilize the 3 required headline slots, because what this is doing, if you give Google 15 headline slots, it's allowing Google to kind of, when Google Smart Bidding is kicking in, it's testing these different headline combinations, these different description combinations. And once it finds a good combination that's working well, converting well, it'll start prioritizing that combination. So it's going to help your long-term conversion rates, click-through rates, all of that stuff if you're giving Google more content to work with. So try to write strong ad copy and make sure the ad copy is also relevant to the keywords that you're targeting. So you can see here in these little green highlighted, these are the keywords in this ad group. And Google wants to see that you're actually targeting these keywords in your headlines in some capacity. So this will lead to higher ad quality. You can see Google gives like a little ad strength score at the top. Doesn't always mean that the ad's going to perform well if you get a good or excellent ad strength, but it definitely helps. What I like to do is I like to kind of give one ad, giving Google everything at once, all the headline slots build up, not pinning any headlines or anything, which I'll get into that in a sec too. And then I split test another ad where I'll pin some headlines, which Google technically doesn't like, but that doesn't mean that it's not going to perform better. So Google Ads is all about testing things, which is what I'm going to get into in just a sec here. But before I get into that, a couple more things about the ad copy. So you may or may not know about this. It might be a little bit more of like an advanced tactic. For your ad copy, you can see here, I have these little squiggly brackets that have this weird text in it. So you can see this one has location city. These are called location insertions and keyword insertions. And I'll actually pin one here in the headline, slot one, so you can see what it would look like. These are just different headline slots that'll allow you to kind of improve your click-through rates and whatnot. So for the city insertion, for example, this will take whatever city the user is searching from, and it will dynamically swap the city out from where they're located. So as you can see here, we have number one location insertion plumbing company. So if I look at the ad example up here, it's going to take whatever city they're searching from. So number one, you've got plumbing company again. It's just going to take whatever number one Gerard plumbing company. It's going to take whatever city and put that in the headline. So that's something that could help increase your click-through rates and maybe make your ad stand out a little bit more. And then for the keyword insertion, what that does is it takes the actual search query that the user put into the Google search bar, and it uses that as your headline as well. So again, your headline is going to be 100% relevant to what they're searching. So if someone types whole house repiping, that's going to be the headline that it's showing. If someone types whole home repipe service, that's what's going to show up. Repiping experts, that's going to show up in the headline. So what I like to do in my split tests, I'll back up a second here. I'll go back to this last page. I usually set up two different responsive search ads, which are just those ad types that I was just showing. That's what a responsive search ad looks like. Then I'll set up one ad with no pinned headlines, and then I'll duplicate that ad and just make one small change. I'll pin the keyword insertion in the first headline slot, for example. And then I will run that for 30, 60, 90 days to analyze the data over that period. Once we get enough data, see which ad is actually performing better, pause the underperforming ad, duplicate the winning ad, and then make another small change to the new ad to split test further. And that's just a continuous process I would suggest going through. And you could do that split testing for landing pages too. So again, even though landing pages is best practice, that doesn't mean that it's always going to perform better than your website. I have seen that websites sometimes perform better than landing pages for certain accounts. So that's also something that we like to split test as well. So if you're unsure, launch one ad that is identical to the other ad copy wise and make the one small change is one ad's going to a landing page, one ad's going to a website, let the data speak for itself, and then just move forward with whatever ad is working better. So I think that's pretty much everything for this point. There's one more quick thing regarding split testing here I have in my notes that I didn't want to forget. So this is another kind of like hidden setting when you're split testing that Google is not going to show you. So if you go to your campaign settings, so you're going to pull up your campaigns, come to this page here. If you hover over a campaign, it's going to open a little gear icon, click on that. And there is a setting, if you scroll down here, that by default, it will start on, it's this ad rotation setting here. By default, it's going to be on optimize, prefer best performing ads, which sounds like what you would want. But if you're trying to run a proper split test, you want the ads to rotate indefinitely, because if we're on this optimize setting, Google is just going to take whatever ad has a higher ad strength, which again doesn't always mean it's going to perform better. And they're just going to give all the visibility, impressions, clicks, all of that to that one ad. And then that split testing ad that has a lower ad strength isn't going to get a proper amount of visibility to see enough data to see which ad is actually working well and which one isn't. So if you guys are split testing, make sure that you come here to this campaign setting here, turn off the optimize best performing ads, make sure you do not optimize rotate indefinitely. This is just going to allow your different responsive search ads to get a balanced amount of visibility and impressions, so you can know what's working and what's not, and Google not messing that all up for you. So this will be a quick one. So this is similar to this setting here. Google will start you off if you create a brand new campaign. There's a few settings that you're going to need to be aware of. So the first and most important one here is your network. So I'm sure a lot of you already know about this, but you want to make sure that you're not running your search ads on search partners or the display network. That's going to lead to a lot lower quality traffic. So again, the best performing campaigns typically tend to be the search campaigns on the search network. You don't want to show on the search partners, which is just basically like affiliate Google websites. Usually a lot of poor quality traffic comes from search partners. So we don't want that. We don't want the display network. Just stick to the search network only. So make sure these two check boxes are unchecked. And there was another quick one here regarding your location settings. So there's another location setting here. Again, a lot of you might already know about this, but by default, this setting will be selected and it allows your ads to show to people outside of your service area. Obviously, you don't want that. So you're going to want to change this one over to people in or regularly in your included locations as well. So like I mentioned earlier, Google pushes your ads in the wrong direction. There's a lot of little settings and whatnot that you just want to be aware of when you're setting up your campaigns, which is why I said earlier, it is a bit daunting. There's a lot of little things that can go wrong and cause you to burn through your ad budget. So that's why I wanted to share some of these smaller things. On the Performance Max side, earlier I mentioned the two main campaigns I would use is either a search campaign 90% of the time. We like to use Performance Max campaigns as supplemental campaigns. They work well for some accounts, other accounts they don't really do as well for. But if Performance Max works well for you, you could generate a lot of really low cost leads and it allows your ads to show on all the channels that Google offers. So you can see your ads can show on YouTube, Gmail, Google Discovery, Display, all of that. So it gives you a bit more visibility and the cost per clicks are a fraction of what you'll see on the search campaign. So it could be a good lower cost campaign option. I know again, a couple of you guys mentioned very high costs on Google. Mixing in some Performance Max campaigns could help bring down that average cost per click. So something you could test out. But if you do test out Performance Max, one setting I wanted to go over there is in your content suitability section. So on your left side here, there's going to be a tools sidebar. You're going to hover over that and go to content suitability. And basically all we're doing here is just excluding all of the apps. So your ads can't show on apps. This absolutely kills Performance Max results. So you can see there's excluded placements here. You're just going to drop down that arrow, go down here to app categories. Unfortunately, there's no quick way to do this. You have to tick through all 140 of the apps and just make sure you exclude all those for your account. So your ad's not going to be shown on any apps. That's only for Performance Max. You don't have to worry about that for search campaigns. So that's another quick setting there. And then a couple of other things I wanted to get into regarding extensions and assets. So if you're running ads and you're not already making use of your assets and your extensions, you definitely want to add as much as you can here because there's only so much that you can do on Google Ads to make your ad stand out. You want to take as much real estate as possible on the page. So add everything you can here. Add your business name, your business logo, your site links, which show under your ad, call outs, structured snippets, which should kind of just show what services you offer or where your service area is. Your call extension is an obvious one. This allows your ads to have a little call now button next to them rather than the user going to the landing page. They can just click call now, follow you from there. Is the location extension. And I've noticed this really does make a big difference in our accounts. If you have a Google Business Profile set up, you want to make sure that you're connecting it to your Google Ads account. So you might have noticed, if you're looking on the Google Maps, you might see some of your competitors showing up in the sponsored posts on the maps, and a ton of call volume goes to the Google Maps. So if we're able to, even if you don't have a lot of reviews, you can kind of leapfrog those really strong organic profiles that have thousands of reviews. If you're running Google Ads and you're using the location extensions, you're going to show up in the sponsored section, which is above all those competitors that you might have with thousands of reviews, and get your calls from there. So this is a big one right here. You're just going to have to connect your GDP, your Google Business Profile, to your Google Ads account. But once you do set up your GDP and connect it here, you're going to want to go to your Google Business Profile and add your tracking number, whatever tracking number that you're using for Google Ads. If you're not using a tracking number, I would definitely suggest using one so you know where your calls are coming from. When you pull up your Google Business Profile, there's going to be the three dots in the top right of your profile. You're just going to have to click that, go to your advanced settings, scroll down, and then there's going to be a Google Ads tracking number section. You just plug your tracking number in there, and then any call that you get from the location extension on the maps, the sponsored post on the maps, you'll get proper tracking for that. Because if you don't add your tracking number in there, all of those calls are going to be going to whatever organic number you have on your Google Business Profile, you're not going to know how well your ads are actually performing. So that was a little bit of a tip there for the assets. And then the last one here, using the wrong bidding strategy. So I'm not sure what most of you guys might have been testing out in terms of bid strategy, but there's really two main bid strategies that I would suggest. So maximize conversions is, and the variance of max conversions. So maximize conversions is a smart bidding strategy. That's the main smart bidding strategy I would recommend. There's a couple of variations to that, like maximize conversions with a target CPA, which basically just you tell Google what cost per lead you're looking for, and Google will try to optimize for that cost per lead. That's something you kind of add down the line. So that's one max conversion strategy you could add. There's also maximize for revenue value, essentially, which if you do have revenue data getting pulled into your accounts, you need to set up different connections to their CRM for that and stuff. But I would say the main two bid strategies to focus on are just normal maximize conversions. But before you even set up maximize conversions, and kind of get, I want to say here, there's like maximize clicks bid strategies. I wouldn't recommend using that, like target impression share. I wouldn't recommend using that. If you start a brand new campaign or a brand new account, I would actually recommend utilizing the manual CPC strategy. So you could actually manually set how much you're willing to spend per click. And it can kind of save you from your campaign going crazy and spending $100, $120 per click. So if you launch a brand new account, it's really important for you to get account data before you switch over to those smart bidding strategies, which are max conversions, maximize conversions, target CPA, all of that. So before you have any of that account data, you want to make sure you're on manual CPC for at least about a month or so to get that initial data, and also control your cost per click before you switch over to max conversions. Because a lot of the time, if you just start a brand new account, you start your campaign to maximize conversions on a smart bidding strategy, Google doesn't know what your ideal audience is. That account history is really important. And if Google doesn't have any history and they don't know what demographic, what device is performing the best for your target specifically, then the cost per click is going to be out of control. The conversion rates are going to be low, and it's just going to burn through your budget. So this is another setting that Google hides in terms of the bid strategy. So again, I'm just going to show you guys where you would find this. So again, if you hover over the campaign and click on the little gear icon here, we're just going to change your bidding settings. So if you just open up bid settings and you click change bid strategy and look at the options that Google gives you, you'll notice that manual CPC isn't here. Like I mentioned, Google likes to hide certain settings. So you have to click the not recommended button down here, and that will open up the availability to set manual CPC strategy on your campaign. So I would recommend setting that to start. We do still see manual CPC works well. We usually, when we launch our new accounts, most of the time, we're launching on manual bidding because we could have more control over the campaigns. We could set our max cost per click. I'm just going to refresh here so it opens up the setting that I want to show you. It'll allow us to set a max bid per each keyword. So for burst pipe plumber, you can see Google actually tells you, for the first page bid, we want to bid $38 or $38. You can go and, bid a little bit above that at $40. And in this way, for this keyword, you're not spending $100 when you don't need to spend $100. You're spending around $40, which is good enough to get you showing up at the top of the page. So that's usually the best way to control your CPC, bring in some initial conversion data. Once you get 10 to 20 conversions, then you could move over to max conversions, and Google will kind of be optimized and learn enough at that point where your CPC should already be in check. For brand new accounts, before the account has any data, I would definitely say manual bidding is the move, and then switch over to max conversions once you get that data in. And then once you do get smart bidding factored into your campaigns, Google will already know what the target audience is. They'll raise your bids for higher converting audiences so you can beat out some of your competitors. So I would say smart bidding is definitely a move in the long term. But for brand new accounts, I would recommend starting on manual to save you guys some money on your crazy CPCs you're probably seeing with brand new accounts, and just have a little bit more control over your ads. Overall, I would just say, don't always trust what Google's recommending. You need to take as much control over your ads as possible. And I'm sure Josh will mention it, but we do a lot of free audits for people. So if any of you guys would be interested in me auditing your account, I'd be happy to do so free of charge. Offer you guys like some advice on what I'm seeing, any recommendations. I'm sure Josh will know more about that and how to set that up. But I think that's pretty much everything for this slide. Josh, you want me to kind of go over anything else here?
Michael, that was great. I did drop the link. If you want to schedule a free audit where Michael will personally look at your campaign, you can go to plumberseo.net/schedule. That was amazing, Michael. First of all, great job. Thanks for breaking this down. I love the fact that you didn't just use the slides, but you showed visuals in the ads editor. If you got value from that, drop a one so Michael knows he appreciates the effort. If you have a question for Michael while he's up and like he's got ads open, feel free to drop that into the chat. Michael, I've got a few other slides there. If you can walk through, just kind of ideally, we talked about where people screw things up. Like, what is the ideal campaign structure? And just kind of cliff notes, hit this for them. That way they can see what some of the best practices are and kind of how we think through this when we set up campaigns.
Yeah, so I'm not sure where you kind of want me to go here, but I would definitely say it all depends on what your budget is and what your priority services are, right? So like, you don't want to spread yourself too thin. If you have a very small budget, I would say, like, say you have like an $1,000 budget, for example, per month, you usually want to start with a very simple structure. You don't want to set up a campaign for every single service that you're offering. If you have a higher budget, you definitely want to get more segmented. So if you have a very simplified budget, I would kind of just start with a smaller general campaign. You can kind of start a campaign with, let's just say you're a plumbing company. You could start with like a plumber near me ad group, just a general plumbing ad group to get all those general terms. And then you could launch different ad groups with your priority services like water heater installations, drain cleaning, whatever that might be. But if you have a higher budget and you can get more granular, you definitely want to. So you want to set up like a general campaign with all the just general plumber near me type terms, your geo terms. And then you want to set up service specific campaigns as well for your priority services like water heaters, drains, all that. And then you could have another campaign that covers kind of maybe some of like your lower priority services that, you don't want to focus on necessarily that much, but yeah, you definitely want to get more granular if you can, so you can get more focus on those top services that are bringing you in those high tickets.
Yeah, I think most people don't have the level of expertise that you have. And like, they only think about pay-per-click in terms of like, okay, I'm going to bid on some terms, right? Or they hand it off to somebody that goes and does their magic in the back end. But this visual just kind of shows you, like, you don't want to lump it all plumbing into one big thing, right? It's like, there's going to be a campaign that would be specifically searching for your company name, and there's specific keywords for that, a specific strategy for that. And then general terms are like plumber, plumber near me, plumber in my area, best plumbers, etc. But then the more specific terms, which would be somebody actually looking for that particular thing, which might be higher transaction. Like if they went and typed in tankless water heaters, you want to be targeting that in a separate ad group with a separate set of keywords. And I think it's really smart what you said, Michael, there. Like, you can't do it all with the $1,000 budget, right? Like, if you've got a limited budget, you're only going to be able to probably play in the general plumbing terms. If you've got more and you're looking to really maximize your lead flow and target the types of services that you want, then you can get pretty creative with how you carve this up.
Sure.
If you could, on the next screen there, that's kind of how you would structure it. The next screen is like what actually breaks down inside of Google Ads.
No, this is good. So yeah, I mean, the campaign is just going to be like the high level. So it's basically like your folder where everything lives under. So the way you can think about it is you want to set, the name for whatever comes up, which is general plumbing. You're going to create a general plumbing campaign. And then within that general plumbing campaign, you're going to list out the different type of specific general plumbing terms you're targeting. So you might have ad groups. You can see on the left side here, we have the campaign, which is the high level. And then we start breaking it down by actual ad groups. So we might have like a plumber near me ad group where we're targeting near me terms. You might have a geo ad group where you're targeting plumber in Miami. You might have an emergency repair ad group where you're targeting emergency plumber near me. So you do want to get more segmented with your ad groups. So the ad groups are more like the different services you're targeting. So let's say you're launching a geo campaign, like I see here, for example, you would want to create different ad groups for each location that you're targeting. So if you're targeting like Miami and Doral and all the different sub-cities around Miami, you want to have those in their own different ad groups. And then it kind of just goes like down the funnel from there. So you have the campaign, then you have the ad groups, which are kind of like the geos or the services or anything. And then you get to the keyword level, which you'll see here where this arrow is pointing. Then all the keywords are going to be related to the actual ad group as well. And then you're going to have all of those responsive search ads, all those with all the ad copy and all that stuff that I was showing earlier. Every ad group, you're going to have specific responsive search ads for. If you have a drain cleaning ad group that's targeting drain cleaning keywords, the responsive search ads in that ad group, you want it to be all related to drain cleaning. You want it to be going to a drain cleaning page if possible. You want it to have headlines about drain cleaning, descriptions about drain cleaning. That way, Google's all about relevance. So if they see, okay, this person's targeting drain cleaning keywords, They have drain cleaning ad copy. They have a drain cleaning page. They're going to bump up your ad quality, your ad relevance, which is going to help you rank higher. It's going to bring down your cost per click. It's going to help your ad perform better. And you're going to be able to outrank all of those other competitors who aren't doing this stuff because Google's going to give priority to your ad. Then we got the responsive search ads here. So yeah, just
I think that was good just to kind of see. I know this is on the outdated interface, but this is just visually like kind of how you structure it, how you break it down. Alicia has a question. She's asking, is there a way to see leads from Google Ads campaign are coming from the app Maps ad placement?
Yeah, so it's going to be hard for me to show exactly since this is just a test account, but it'll all show in that same page I was showing before. So, I don't want to pull up an actual account here, but if you do have your location extension set up, all you're going to do is go to assets. You're going to go over your location. And then once you add your GBP here, your Google Business Profile, it's going to show your location. And you can see there's columns here with the different metrics. So that's where all of the metrics are going to show. So you can obviously add columns here. You would add a column for conversions specifically. And it will show how many clicks came through your Google Maps sponsored post, how many conversions came from there. So conversions aren't flowing through. If you're having some issues with your conversion tracking, you could simply just add the phone calls, which will maybe filter in some calls that might not have been tracked as a conversion, depending on how your conversion actions are set up. So you could add phone calls there. So that's how I would typically look at it.
Super good. 2 questions here that I think our participants and people watching this after the fact probably have. You mentioned if you've got a small budget, like 1,000, like what do you find is the appropriate budget? I know it's different by market, right? Toledo, Ohio is going to be much different than Los Angeles, but what would be like a minimum viable budget to really be effective in a plumbing or HVAC campaign?
Yeah, so I honestly, I would say $1,000 a month is bare minimum. But if we launch with $1,000 a month budget, just don't expect that we're going to have a super granular 10 campaign approach. It's going to be very simple. Like we want to make sure, like if I was setting up an account with a $1,000 budget, I'm trying to do everything I possibly can to get the most out of your budget that you have. So think about it like if we have a $1,000 a day budget, and if we're running only on weekdays, that comes out. So we're running 20 days a month, just all weekdays. That comes out to $50 per day budget. Google sets their budgets on a per day basis. They look at it over 30 days, but you set your daily budgets. So if you only have $50 a day to work with, and you're setting that across multiple different campaigns, let's say even if you have 2 campaigns, you're going to have a $25 a day budget for both of those campaigns, which just really isn't going to cut it. Usually the bare minimum I try to set the campaigns to is $50 a day, which is why I recommend at least an $1,000 a day budget running weekdays only, because weekdays usually you get the best performance from what we've seen. And we just recently had a new account that we launched literally this month or maybe end of March. That's on $1,000 a day. They're a plumbing company. So the way we set it up was we just had a general plumbing ad group. And then we had a couple of more ad groups for their priority services that they told us they wanted to target.
You said $1,000 per day. I just want to clarify. Are you saying
$1,000 a month minimum, $50 per day if you're running on a weekday. Sorry about that.
That's right.
So yeah, we have an account right now that we just launched at $1,000 a month, $50 a day budget, and they're already hitting strong conversion rates. So we typically shoot for at least a 20% click to call conversion rate. Usually the industry average is like 10 to 15%. We shoot for like 20, 30%. And usually it might take 2 to 3 months to kind of get to that point, but this account's brand new and they're already surpassing 20%. So it's definitely possible. Obviously, like you mentioned, Josh, every area is going to be different. So some areas are going to be more competitive. So if you do have a low budget, you could also try to mix in some of like those performance max campaigns too. We do have some accounts that run on super low budgets, like $500 a month, and we only run performance max for them. I wouldn't fully suggest that, but it does work for some accounts. Like I said, PMax is kind of hit or miss. So yeah, I would say $1,000 a month minimum and just keep it very simple. One campaign targeting general plumbing terms and whatever like 2 to 3 top priority services you really want to target. Make sure you're targeting exact match keywords, because if your budget's that low, you do not want to waste any clicks. And manual bidding strategy I'd recommend as well, just to kind of keep control over your budget and your spend at that low of a monthly budget.
So that's the minimum. In terms of like when you get an account and it's like, okay, that's a healthy budget, I feel good about that to start. What would be the sweet spot for you? Like, what do you, in most cases, if you've got a $5,000 budget, do you feel like you can really do a lot with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, of course, some companies, they have multiple industries. So it depends. Like if we're just talking about one industry specifically,
just plumbing or just HVAC,
I would say 2,500 to 5,000 a month is definitely a good sweet spot, like even 2,000 for one industry. Of course, again, it depends. Some markets are more expensive, but yeah, usually for one industry, a $2,000, $2,500 a month budget is good. But yeah, the higher the budget, the better, because, impression shares are an important metric, and you can miss out on a lot of impressions due to your lack of budget. So your ad, if you have a low budget, your ad might be showing more at like the bottom of the first page or the second page, which obviously at that point, like if someone's scrolling all the way to the bottom of the page, they've already seen so many sponsored posts, so many organic listings and whatnot. So your chances of converting bottom of the page is usually not as great as at the top of the page. So yeah, obviously the higher the budget, the better you're going to be able to rank on the page, which is going to help. And then the more granular you can get with your campaigns too. So you don't have to lump those general terms in with your service related terms, because that's not always the best strategy. We only do it like when we have no other choice, depending on the budget. But yeah, like I mentioned earlier, having a more segmented structure, having a plumbing and leak campaign, having a water heater campaign and drain campaign, it allows you to get the appropriate spend you're looking for on each service. And you can definitely see better results that way for sure. So 2,500 to 5,000 is definitely a good range for each industry.
And I think you've made some really important points about you can't do it all on a small budget, right? And like the more budget you have, the more aggressively you can play. The other really important questions outside of that was conversion tracking. I see so many home service companies that they set up the campaigns, they put a $5,000 budget, but then they're not doing the conversion tracking properly. How does that impact performance and the ability to track the ROI and everything else?
Yeah, so of course for visibility, it's everything. So you're not going to be able to see what's working. You have no idea if your ads are working if you don't have proper conversion tracking in place. But also for the campaigns to actually learn, like Google needs that conversion data. So Google is optimizing if you're on a manual bid strategy or maximize conversion bid strategy, any sort of smart bidding strategy, it's going to be using those conversions to optimize your campaign. So if you could be getting called, getting conversions, but if they're not feeding into Google ads properly, Google is going to be blind still. They're not going to know what's working, what's not working. Google smart bidding can't really come into play there. So yeah, I mean, it might be a little confusing at first. Like you definitely want to make sure you're setting up a couple of different conversion actions. Like you want to make sure that you're tracking the calls on your website specifically. So the way Google works, Google uses a Google forwarding number to track, and that's basically a swapping number. So if you're running ads to your website, for example, you're going to want to set up a website call conversion. In that conversion action you set up, you're going to use your website number as the number that Google looks for to swap with their Google forwarding number. And then essentially what Google's going to do is it's going to swap their number. And so all the tracking comes into the Google side of things. And then it forwards the call back to your business line or your call rail tracking line or whatever you're using. So you get the call, you get the attribution on call rail or whatever call recording you're using. But also Google Ads is able to track the conversion. So Google knows what's working, what's not working. So you're going to want to set up that. When you set up call extensions, Google actually, I think, still automatically creates a call from ads or a call extension conversion action for you. So this is usually a completely different conversion action. But as soon as you set this up, Google should kind of set up the conversion action for you. I can kind of show you what some of these look like. If you're tracking form fills, you want to make sure that you have like the right triggers in place. So like when someone submits a form, the way we usually set it up is it leads to a thank you page, and then the conversion triggers whenever someone lands on that thank you page. And we use landing pages typically. So the only way someone's finding that thank you page is if they submit a form from the Google Ads. It might get a little tricky if you're using a website where organic traffic is coming through. But yeah, these are the main ones. There's one missing here, which I'll get into. But the phone call from the website, you want to make sure that Google's able to identify the number on your landing page or website. The Google forwarding number just swaps with that number and then forwards to your tracking number or your business line. So this is kind of what I was just referring to when you set up the conversion action. There's going to be a destination number, which is the number that the Google forwarding number forwards to. But the display number is the number that you want to put on that's showing like the static number on your website or your landing page. This is what Google's going to look to swap with. And that's like the main conversion action there is the website calls. The call from ads conversion action here is just referring to that call extension, the one that shows up next to your ad without needing to go to the landing page. And then also the form fill here. So these just trigger whenever someone lands on a thank you page. And personally, we use Google Tag Manager to set up all those triggers and everything. So like whenever you set up a conversion action in Google Ads, you're basically just going to have to sync it up with your Google Tag Manager account. If you're not familiar with that, it might be confusing at first, but really all you're doing is Google will give you some tag setups here, and they kind of made it a little bit tricky now, but Google Tag Manager will be asking you for your account ID and your conversion label as well, which can be found. It's a little crazy now that they're trying to move away from Tag Manager, I think, but that's all Google's going to be asking for. Tag Manager is going to be asking for is your ID, which is this number right here, AW dash whatever your ID is, and then your label. So just make sure you're syncing everything up with Google Tag Manager, because that's where you set up all the triggers and all of that. So whenever, someone lands on a thank you page, for example, that sends that data back to Google Ads and the conversions tracking. So yeah, conversion tracking is everything for obviously visibility, but also to help the campaigns learn and optimize over time.
Michael, this has been awesome. Thanks for unpacking this for us. Guys, if you have follow-up questions, post them into the chat here. Michael, great work. Thanks for breaking that down.